Okay, so I guess the obvious place to start would just be a little bit of background in terms of the, I think, development and installation of the hydrogen fuel cell power generation system at, and this is what Klickitat, easy to say or not, Valley Health Hospital. So just yeah, and that's in sorry, in Washington State, I think. So just good to understand the background as to how the project came about.
Yeah. So I'll start this, Richard, and then feel free to add anything. So Kohler's relationship with Toyota has been long-standing for several years, and we've been working in R&D labs and understanding fuel cell technology, and that really then became a process of commercialization and really building a system around that for specifically power generation applications. So that was going internally at Kohler, and we made this effort to then find a project partner to actually, see a system in the field and actually have it be useful for a customer. So we came across Klickitat Valley Health, who had reached out asking for solutions, and they went through a bidding process like a lot of facilities would do. And we responded to that bid, and then we were the successful kind of awardee in that project. So essentially, they're looking to become more resilient in their operations. I think they had received some grants from the state, as well as maybe the federal government, and they're looking at their operations, and they're obviously a critical component within the community that they serve, and it's really about providing a resilient and actually a more sustainable operation effectively for that community within their hospital and healthcare, essentially. So that's why the hospital had reached out for alternative solutions. They had previously used diesel generators. They still are using one of them, but then they're now displacing one and using this hydrogen fuel cell. And I think a phase two of the project, which of course may change, but at least at this stage, I think is planned to be a microgrid, essentially. So there's many different distributed energy resources within this network, really, again, showcasing sustainable resilience.
Yeah, as Ben mentioned, Toyota's been doing fuel cells for over 30 years. We started development in 1992 and released our first vehicle in 2015, the Mirai. Since then, we have over 350 million miles on our Mirai worldwide, and we've recognized that the market's looking for other options to incorporate the hydrogen technology. So in 2021, we took all those great components from the Mirai and packaged it into a module that would be suitable to be integrated into a wide variety of applications. And a really great candidate is stationary power. And for Toyota, we want to stand behind our quality and brand name. So we were looking for a great partner, and Kohler has proven to be that with all of their experience in the power generation field. So it was a great opportunity for us to collaborate on this project at a hospital in an area where this technology can be well demonstrated and serve a greater purpose. So we're very excited about this first project with Kohler.
Yeah, and you mentioned obviously you were in a bidding process. Do you happen to know what other project? I mean, was it just another diesel generator, the main option, or were there other sort of alternative energy sources, power sources that they were looking at? Do you happen to know?
I'm sure there were others, and I think they still are, exploring like adding solar or batteries into their system. I think from a fuel cell standpoint, there were other bidding companies. But I think it kind of goes back to, and I can't speak necessarily for the customer and how they made the decision, but I think what we've been receiving as feedback when we go to market with this product is, as Richard alluded to, in the fact that it's a quality and brand recognition standpoint, and seeing a company like Kohler out there that is an incumbent generator manufacturer that understands the mission critical space, especially healthcare applications. It's kind of a big deal to then lead into this newer generation technology. And then with the backing of a company like Toyota, again, with that extensive experience in fuel cell technology, it's a winning combination for us as the integrator, but then also the customer at the end of the day.
Yeah, and we recognize that you know, whether it's this hospital, a data center, or other application, they have options to choose from, especially in the hydrogen field. So we want to make sure that the product that's being offered is well integrated and well supported, and that's something both of our companies are well equipped to handle.
Okay, yeah, and you say obviously you can't speak for the. I mean, was there any sort of feedback as to why they'd chosen yourselves? That yeah, you've obviously explained the sort of pedigree of yourself, which is important. But anything else that they gave you feedback as to why it was yourselves as opposed to anything else?
Not specifically from a feedback. I think something that we did early on was like engage in a kind of a conversation about meeting their needs and understanding what requirements they have. And I think starting that process early really developed a relationship with the customer that led to them wanting to, I think, again, choose Kohler because of that, relationship that had been built, and then understanding that we're not trying to push the product necessarily. It's really finding the right solution for their needs. And in this case, that just happened to be what they were looking to do. They wanted to use hydrogen. They wanted to showcase that technology within this system. And I think because of those other reasons, such as the quality and the reliability of the system that we're putting out, they entrusted us to be the provider.
Okay, and then in terms of the actual solution, so as I understand it, the official name is the Kohler fuel cell system. Can you, between you, explain who does what? Yeah, so what does Kohler bring to the party, and what does Toyota do? Who I don't know who wants to lead, but yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I'll start. So we're doing like everything else then, beyond just the fuel cell stack. And I'll let Richard talk about the fuel cell stack and how that integrates more specifically. But when you think about a generator system, you have an engine, and then you have some sort of conversion system. And then there's a lot of other components in there, like a cooling system to make sure everything's working right. And then an enclosure that protects the system and it makes it easy to transport and then install at a customer's project site. So we're doing all those other things. So you can very much look at Toyota's system as the engine that we're sourcing in, and then we're integrating those components. Again, that's what we do every day with conventional solutions. So we very, very much understand complex integration work. And then we're leveraging our proprietary control technology. So that's a Kohler design system that's managing all these components. And then again, our power engineering and design team understands how to put these things together to make sure that it's a functional turnkey system that a customer can use and really effectively functions no differently than they would expect out of a conventional diesel or natural gas engine and generator system, just because we understand, what the things they're looking for when they specify and install generators.
Yeah, and as far as the fuel cell, so the control of the fuel cell itself is a fairly complex endeavor. And Toyota has developed very unique control system to maximize efficiency and life of that system. But at the end of the day, the fuel cell itself is putting out a DC power. So we require our partner, Kohler, to take that fuel cell, convert that DC power into AC, and synchronize with the grid that it's attaching to. So the module itself has, the hydrogen controls, it has its own cooling controls, but Kohler is responsible for that balance of plant integration. And our engineers worked very closely together to make sure that that integration was as optimal as it could be.
Again, as I understand it, from the Toyota perspective, as you say, you've got a long history in developing it for vehicles. Did you have to do a lot of adapting to make it suitable for this application, or was it almost taking it off the shelf, or were there some clever stuff went on as well?
So we were able to reuse almost all the components from the vehicle. The controls had to change slightly, but in a vehicle, you want to get in, hit start, and take off quickly. So the ability for our fuel cell to be able to quickly power up and be able to provide power very, very quickly is important for backup generation, just as it is in a vehicle. But again, coming from a vehicle application where the loads are going to vary as you're pressing the pedal, you're going to ramp up, ramp down. Again, we're able to provide a solution where the generator can minimize its, battery power and be primarily driven by the fuel cell.
And in terms of the application potential, clearly in this case it's a hospital, but part of the reason I guess we're having the conversation is, you know, the data center industry, which is my sort of back. So I guess there's potential there. I mean, did you choose the hospital? Because although obviously it's critical there, was the data center industry a little bit reticent because, you know, if they had to flick the switch and etc., you know, was there a trust issue? I'm just wondering why you didn't start in the data center industry as opposed to the hospital, or yeah, just and what the potential is, I suppose, in the data center sector.
Well, I think a first aspect of that is, you know, we are, you know, focused on the mission critical space, and healthcare fits within that. So I think we're looking at all kind of segments within that mission critical space. And Richard alluded to it. It's a, you know, we're demonstrating like high performing systems because of that expertise that they are bringing in. So it has that fast startup capability. It has load following capability. And that's the exciting part, where you're able to demonstrate the same performance as a conventional solution, but now using hydrogen, it has zero emissions. So you have that sustainability aspect to it as well. I think when it comes to a data center customer, they understand a diesel generator. They don't like to have to think about it, and they just know that it works. So that's just kind of like the easy option. But I think we're getting traction with them being receptive to these systems. They are more costly, at least at this time. So I think that there's a little bit of a barrier to adoption from that standpoint. And then the hydrogen supply is also a challenge for a lot of customers, and understanding, okay, I can buy this technology. I would trust Kohler and the Toyota solution. But then where do I source my hydrogen, especially at the scale that data centers are talking? I mean, it used to be a few years ago that a 30 megawatt data center was kind of normal. Now about 80 to 100 megawatts. And it just keeps growing and growing every day. So I think it's really a challenge of like, where does the fuel cell part fit into that? Am I completely switching over from diesel to hydrogen? Am I taking a different strategy? And I think that those are the things where there's a bit of a disconnect in the data center industry and operators themselves, where the sustainability team is very focused on this. We're having great conversations with that aspect, but it takes a few years before that roadmap that they've put in place to transition over to the engineering and operations team that are implementing these into the design of the data center. And I think that that's the challenge, where there's just a latency period of testing these systems, understanding how it actually performs. And I think that that's why the hospital is a great example of being able to showcase this to a customer like a data center, to say, hey, we can do all these things that you'd expect out of a diesel. Come check it out. And then we'd, you know, love to speak more about how this could look in your circumstance.
I think Ben hit the nail on the head. The planning horizon for a data center is longer than, say, a smaller system at a hospital. Working out the logistics of the hydrogen, while not as complex as, say, you know, setting up a light duty vehicle station, is still significant. And, you know, we have been working with a number of potential customers and lending our expertise in the hydrogen field, because, you know, while we have been developing the fuel cell technology, we've also been engaged in the whole hydrogen ecosystem. So we're able to help them make connections, give them guidance on what they would need to do to set up. So again, it's coming. It's just a little bit longer of a planning horizon.
Okay, so I mean, without giving away anything, you're having conversations with data center customers as to the possibility, because as you say, from a sustainability point of view, it's a significant win. But as you also say, I hear confusing pictures. Some people tell me that Europe is better off for sort of supply of industrial hydrogen or green hydrogen, and other people tell me, you know, it's available on an industrial scale in America at the moment and not in Europe. But just, I suppose, yeah, your thoughts, as to conversations you are having with data center folks, and also is it the availability of hydrogen that's the main bottleneck, or is it still a sort of mental hurdle to overcome? As you say, they've been used to diesel for so long and they know it kind of works, so they've got to be convinced to change for something else.
Yeah, I think it's a mix. I think it's circumstantial to some extent too. You know, the part of the reason that Kohler is starting this endeavor with fuel cell technology is one, because we're getting interest from the market to have, you know, more options of decarbonization, but it's really about providing eventually this suite of solutions, because we know that one solution does not fit all circumstances. And I think that that's where the conversation needs to lead to when it comes to hydrogen access. There's going to be some regions that are just more equipped for that kind of access today. And then as that supply increases, then that'll transition to being more readily available throughout the US or even Europe, for example. So I think it's an understanding of like how I can access that. And then, as Richard said, really just relationship management of assisting clients that are interested in it, getting over that hurdle with them to understand their options when it comes to sourcing that hydrogen. And I think it's just kind of a waiting game to some extent to see where the infrastructure of hydrogen goes.
And part of it's education, right? So I don't think it's a secret that as far as hydrogen in North America, it is predominantly used by the petroleum and fertilizer industry. However, there are many new green generation plants coming online across the country. The hydrogen hub funding is certainly supercharging that effort, and just making the connections between the suppliers and the buyers is an important component of making sure that everyone feels comfortable with that transition.
And I'm also, apologies for a stupid question, but I know with diesel generators, obviously it's a fossil fuel, but also I know the storing of the fuel. I mean, there can be potential problems with that, and when if you just leave the fuel lie, when you actually then press the button, things can not. Are there any similar issues with storing and the using of the hydrogen, or is it much more reliable, shall we say, in use than diesel might be?
I think the biggest challenge when it comes to hydrogen is just the volumetric energy density of it compared to liquid fuels. And I think that's a hurdle that can easily be overcome just through an operational shift in mentality. Especially in the data center industry, there is a notion that I need, 24 to 72 hours of liquid fuel on site at all times. And then I have trucking companies on call when I need more than that, and they're there in an hour. And I think that just needs to shift as we become more accustomed to different technology types and relying on those to do more than just be an insurance policy. And I think as we're using them more frequently, integrating them more into the operation, we can understand that it doesn't have to just be like that. It doesn't have to just be the backup solution. And that's where the fuel cell fits in. It can be more flexible in that operation. And then, it's just a different mindset in terms of how we approach the fueling. And I think we'll get there through just technological advancement. You have to think about the liquid fuel industry has been around for so long. So it's had so much more time to really make that transition where we're trying to force hydrogen to just be there instantly. And I think it'll get there. And I think it's just going to take some work and innovation through different technology types. But there's a range of options when it comes to like storage. You have gaseous storage, you have liquid storage. There's new technologies such as metal hydride storage. So there's a range of options, and it just depends on, how much the customer is looking to have on site or to source, and what works best for their application.
Yeah, and it's also going to be a transition in thinking about how you utilize these assets. So traditionally with diesels, you have an air permit that limits the number of hours per year it can operate. So they may run it 10 hours a month just to exercise it. But with hydrogen, they're going to be able to run it more frequently to do things like peak shaving to lower their energy bills, or in, high cost energy markets like California, as the price of hydrogen comes down, it may be cheaper for them to run their hydrogen generator and produce electricity at a lower dollar per kilowatt hour versus, using the grid. So as they become more savvy in how they're going to operate these units, it becomes more attractive.
And one other thing, and again, this is a bit sort of left field, but friends of mine who do work in the automotive industry suggest that although electric vehicles are in vogue at the moment, hydrogen may well be where we end up. I mean, if that is the case, I guess then the whole hydrogen fuel infrastructure will just completely take off, and a lot of what we've just the pain points or potential problems will disappear. I mean, is that, I guess, Richard in particular, is that something you can foresee, or is it too early to sort of predict that scenario?
No, absolutely. We're already seeing where they're trying to put in EV chargers, but the grid's not ready to provide that amount of power. So we've been getting, requests about, can we use a hydrogen generator to charge electric vehicles? And we see that in a number of places, not just for EVs, but ports as well. It's challenging to provide megawatts of power on demand for the utilities. They have to ramp up as well. So that's really accelerating the push towards hydrogen.
Okay, and maybe just then in summary from both of you, in terms of how significant you think this development could be, I mean, is it a sort of evolution at the next iteration, or do you think it's more of a revolution as and when the industry, the data center industry, sort of understands the benefits? Do you think it will make a significant change to the way data centers are designed and operated in particular?
Yeah, I think it's more revolutionary. I think from an evolutionary standpoint, that's where advancements in conventional technology come in. Like we're doing that continuously at Kohler, where we're making optimization changes for our engines so they're more efficient, or adapting to allow for renewable diesels. But I think when you take a shift from that conventional solution to this new solution that's completely eliminating emissions and really focusing on that decarbonization strategy, which is where we're all trying to get to, it takes that incremental approach to this next, big step change, where it's now specific to like a data center customer, where the engineering and operations teams are integrating these systems into their plans. And there's some really innovative like ideas out there where it's, again, more of a flexible operation scenario, and using these systems more frequently and considering them in microgrids and other aspects like that, rather than just a stranded asset. And I think that that's the important piece of how you approach facility operations and how you approach the new age of energy. It's much more of an active asset strategy than it just being something that's idle. And I think that that's the most important piece. And at Kohler, that's what we're planning to offer, is this range of solutions, because every application is different, and we want to be able to be that provider that can offer this set of solutions. And the great thing is that as a long-standing provider of these solutions, we have that full end-to-end support, where you can leverage that, whether it's new technology or old. You still have that same base of pre-specification support all the way to the servicing and maintenance aspect that we can rely on from a global scale. And I think that that's the most exciting piece, is being able to leverage all of that.
Yeah, we're really looking to be a partner, as many companies have very strong environmental and zero CO2 goals. This is a great solution for them, especially where they have uncertain demand for that power. This is a great place for where you have a smaller footprint, and solar is not necessarily an option for them.
Okay, I mean, it's been great to chat to both of you, and some brilliant insights into what's going on in an exciting future. So Ben and Richard, really appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.